From New York, it's That Kevin Show.
See, I knew it.
Come on, Kev. What's a few classified documents between friends?
I told you all the time. I knew it. I knew he had some too.
Here he is, That Kevin McCullough.
Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is one of the most important journalists on the planet today. He's worked for all of the major big journalism houses, and he's running the best news shop on the planet now. He is the proprietor of Just the News. Please welcome John Solomon. When we are thinking about the 2024 cycle, as nearly everybody is, there's some really huge stories here. One, Trump is defying all of the conventional rules, and he continues to just go up in his rating and approval and his lead over his primary opponents, et cetera. In fact, they were trying to shame him last weekend. Oh, he didn't sit down with the governor at the Iowa fair. What an opportunity he's missing. Meanwhile, he's buzzing the speeches of the other guys with Trump Force One, and they break out in chants for him. There is a cataclysmic collision headed our way between the administration, most pronouncedly the fist of the Justice Department, and the force that is the people, and the people as they are gathering their steam behind Donald Trump. Yeah. Where does this end?
I assume it ends with the wisdom of the American people, that they will cast a verdict in the court of public opinion in November of 2024 that will resolve a lot of these things. If they think what's happened to Donald Trump is wrong and that this is banana republic tactics, they are going to vote him into office, and that gives him the opportunity to pardon himself federally, maybe get state governors to pardon him and get these cases off the ledger long term, or certainly delay them to after he's president. But if they don't feel that, they'll pick another person to either be the nominee or the president, and the Trump era will come to a close in a very cataclysmic way. I think that's ultimately probably what our founding fathers wanted in a moment like this, that elections be the ultimate decider of issues like this. But unfortunately, there has been a justice system from the state all the way up to the federal level that seems to want to intrude on the Americans' ability to do that, to try to sideline Donald Trump. Just think about this. If Georgia meets its current target to hold the large and complicated racketeering trial in 6 months, it will mean that Donald Trump has 7 separate trials in 2024 when he's trying to run for president. 7. That's not an accident. A lot of these cases go back years, but yet all of them seem to have gotten ripe at the same time as 2024 was coming forward. I think a lot of people look at that and say, do we really want to live in a country where the opposition party leader, who a lot of people like, maybe half the country, is facing 7 trials during the election? Kind of feels like what we would have seen in the old African dictator nations back a half century ago, or in the Soviet Gulag era. I think a lot of people see that, but at the end of the day, the American people can foil the system by electing Donald Trump, or they can say, listen, I've looked at the indictments and I think Donald Trump doesn't deserve to be president, and they can vote him out. That will ultimately be the final verdict on this very unprecedented time in American history.
It seems a little bit odd to me that that the American people are giving the current administration the runway that they are on this, simply because there could be changes to this process. I mean, sure. Rachel Maddow was the one that said on television, if you don't run for president, this all goes away. They're baiting the people with as much of an obvious, not only are we doing this, but we're doing it in your face, as they possibly can. John, on record, has there ever been a period of American history where anything like this has been something that we could look to and say that's how they handled it then?
Certainly not in modern history. I mean, over the years, there's been some pretty fun moments, or we look back and say fun now, but they were probably very tense moments where unusual things happen. But I think this is, even in the full 247 plus year history of this country, this is probably unprecedented and uncharted waters. And I think that that's a very unnerving thing for a lot of people. We don't know how this is going to end. The charges last night carry a mandatory prison sentence if you're convicted of them. If Donald Trump was convicted of all the crimes and sentenced to the maximum, he'd be in prison somewhere between 600 and 800 years. Is that what Americans intended? Is this what they see as an extension of the bogus Russia collusion case? Do they see maybe Donald Trump stepped in a mousetrap and he deserves this? I don't know. The polls right now show Joe Biden going down in the ratings. I think 37% approval with Scott Rasmussen yesterday, very low. And Donald Trump up above 40%, and in some national polls beating Joe Biden head to head. That seems to me an early way of the American people saying, we reject what's going on right now, but it's early.
Yeah.
There could be a different nominee. There could be a different outcome. A lot of things are going to happen between now and November, but I think the early polling data is a subtle way of the American people, or maybe not so subtle way of the American people saying, I don't like what you're doing.
I've always thought that Trump underpolls too. So the fact that he's as high as he is, I think is interesting. And Breitbart had a poll, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. I saw the headline that said he was up 18 with independents over Biden in a head-to-head matchup. I think that's where this gets decided. The middle ground. People that aren't hardened partisans are going to be the ones that decide.
I think the people that are hard in Donald Trump's camp are hard in the Never Trump camp are not going to change. Nothing that has happened in the last 6 months of extraordinary history is going to change your mind. It is going to be those in the middle, the undecideds, the independents, maybe people who've never voted before, first-time low propensity voters getting into the game. But I think you're right. And I think at the end of the day, that's probably what the founding fathers and all of their wisdom back in 1776 to 1789 probably were banking on. They really created a system that could be so elastic that it could even deal with the moment we're in now, even though for many people it feels hopeless or the country feels lost. There are still mechanisms available to us to reclaim or to fix what we think is wrong here. And I think 2024 will be that election. We will get a verdict one way or the other to do it. It's, a lot of Democrats have said, oh, look at this. It's all going to happen during the election. That's the way we planned it.
Right.
Well, they're being kind of honest about it. So I guess we ought to take them at their word.
Last area of thought on this, and I want your perspective. The former President Trump's, maybe his biggest accomplishment in his term was what he did for the judiciary in terms of the number of judges that he got appointed. Do you see the Supreme Court being an arbiter in this ultimate cataclysm battle that comes between the Biden administration and the American people?
It's certainly some of these issues are going to reach the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court thus far has not been willing to take preemptive action on behalf of Donald Trump. They have voided or allowed his attorney-client privilege to be voided, his executive privilege to be voided. And I think that if you take past as prologue, then maybe they're not going to intervene as many times here as well. They're going to let the judicial system play out and then review it on remand after the case is done. But there are some important issues. Georgia, the indictment that came last night, could very well be moved to a federal court. It clearly seems to meet the standard according to legal experts I've talked to. That's a big change if you take it out of
Georgia's
Fulton
hands.
County.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. There are issues of separation of powers. There are issues of statutory limitations. Some of those are going to get to the Supreme Court. My guess is the president will have a mixed bag, a win some, lose some. I think ultimately the outcome is going to be more decided by what statement the American people make when they vote in November of 2024.
John Solomon, always appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you, Kevin.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square.
Ready or not, he'll be right back.